So today we're going to be working on some of the thrift store makeovers in this video. Getting the unwanted donated items, secondhand finds that just need a little bit more loving to get them back out there to be beautiful home decor again. So I'm going to start off oval frames. If you can find them, especially if they have the glass, never worry about the back. Actually, I do have the other piece of the back, but y'all never worry about the back because you could always cut up poster board, foam board, cardboard to put the back in. The big thing is that it has this glass and it's a beautiful oval frame with some detail on it. Okay, so see, I do have the other piece that went there, but I'm trying to figure out not to break the glass, but I think what it is there's little nails that are into the wood, and it's so hard because I got to press into it and say a prayer that you don't break the glass to get the little nails out. Just need to get them like that, raised up a little bit so I can take the puller and pull them. There. Oh, okay, got it. Now I just didn't want to have to work on that so much. If I have to pull these, that's fine. And I know I'm not going to be reusing this hanger because the image I have is not going to go that way anyway. And plus these really make them stick out. So we'll get these off. I have no idea what that is on the glass. Oh, well, at least it comes off. Glass cleaner. Cheap glass cleaner, actually, that works wonderful. Oh, yeah, it's still coming off on the rag. Okay, so I hope you all that watch all the time don't say, oh my gosh, a swan again. I cannot keep swans in our booth. Whatever I put them on, so swan it is. And then this oval frame is perfect because the swan paper that I get from Zazzle, swans are long. So it's not like it's a round or a square. So it's really hard to find something to fit them. So this glass is perfect. Well, okay, almost perfect as you see. So if I off center it, see it's a little bit over here, it's a little over there. So what I'm going to do is I just take a Sharpie, which this is an outdoor marker actually, but a Sharpie. So I know where, I definitely want to make sure that I get mirror effect on there, which is the technique we're doing. And then I want to make sure that I don't cover my swan. And the mirror effect's nice because when you are missing spots like that, it kind of covers it. So as you see, I'm going to be off centering my paper. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of a trace job on my paper so I know when I put the paper where I need to kind of do some markings. So okay, we've got all that. So we'll set the paper off to the side. And now what we're going to do, we're going to flip this so that the Sharpie is on the opposite side, just like that. So in a spray bottle, I have distilled vinegar, full strength, not watered down. The mirror effect of choice is Rust-Oleum's. And then to back it and give it a little bit of shimmer and bling, I have some gold spray paint. The stuff is kind of smelly, so that's why I want to show it all at once. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to spritz on the distilled vinegar. Then I'm going to shake up my mirror effect, and then I'm going to spray on top of that. I'm going to help my mirror effect dry by a heat gun. And for whatever reason, it doesn't bother that distilled vinegar shop cloth that you get in that box, shop rags. And I'm just going to blot off the distilled vinegar. And then I'll go and repeat this process one more time. I don't want to go crazy because I don't have a ton of space around the face. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the gold. And I know it seems like, oh my God, you kind of want that overspray on a piece of paper because you don't want to get too much, especially when you just want it to be on the edges. Okay, I'm going to take some water, paintbrush, run it across that line there. And that's how we're going to cut this paper off. We're just going to kind of tear it. Works the best for control with just your finger. I'm not worried about the Sharpie mark because that's going to be going underneath the frame. But yes, that's how we're going to cut it. And then we will jagged this just a little bit, even though we don't really want too much to come off. We don't want that completely straight line. It blends a lot better if you have a jagged edge. And then decoupage this on, so we flip our, this is still the back. And then I remember that the one side goes all the way here. I'm using Decoupage Transfers Gel by Fusion. We just need a thin coat and we go right over that paint. That helps it prevent not having a line. I'm going to mist my paper just a little bit. Take a bold up saran wrap. Help lay it down. Because for some reason the pressure of your hand is just too strong and it can rip the paper when it's wet. And I am not that type of perfectionist that worries about the wrinkles. See how the paper stretches when it's wet and that line is over. And then I just like to do a brayer just to make sure that one that kind of helps even out any of that transfer gel underneath there. And then gets everything applied down. I'd give it a shot to see if when I put the gold frame before I paint it, if I love it. And I don't. I know, I always get those, I wish you would have left it. But I'm the one doing it. So if I'm not loving it, why am I doing it? So I can envision this frame being chippy white, which is one of the best sellers. Yeah, so it doesn't really do, I know that there's a black mark, but it doesn't pop the picture. All you're looking at is the frame. Now that I decided that I am going to paint the frame. Y'all turn the channel if you don't want me to, but I put it up against that. I don't think there's any wow factor. So I am going to scuff sand what I can. Okay, I'm just going to wipe it down. I did as much as I can. For my frame, I'm going to be doing flour sack. I already have it pre-measured because I was running out. So I decided just to pour it all in and see what I got. Okay, time to get painting. Kind of have to do a dabbing motion in this little detail. That little detail is just, It's not glued on. I think it's just nailed on. When I was sanding, I could tell that if I tried to sand it, I was going to make it loose, and I didn't want to get too close that I was going to break it, because that's the fun little detail here. Kind of reminds me of like an IOD mold or something. Applique. Of course, the first coat's definitely probably just going to look translucent. Okay, coat number 2. Like I said, that first coat always looks so translucent, and then you get that second coat on, and big difference. So a little bit of cracking, crazing going on, a little bit of chippiness around the details. Not terribly too much, 3 coats. So we're going to go ahead and seal that in first with some polyacrylic. Okay, now I want to pop all those beautiful crazings. And I'm going to start off with some aging wax. I've already sealed this in with polyacrylic, so it's not going to make my paint brown. And that's what would happen if you didn't seal it in before putting wax on it. The chances you might make your paint a little brown, because milk paint is porous until sealed in. They do have an antiquing, and the antiquing is more brown, so it would be darker. Now I'm going to take some of the clear wax and we're going to rub it off. You just want it to stick into those crazings, like, you know, dirt and dust and all that would be. Like this was out in the weather, out in a barn somewhere, and the weather caused it to crack. And then leave some of that dark wax in the details to make those pop. Okay, I gotta clean my markings off now. Like I said, mine's not a true Sharpie. It's an outdoor marker, but it works and it does come off. So why I can't remember to bring a real Sharpie out here, I don't know. Just how it goes. But I don't have to worry about it coming off, that's for sure. Need to back this with something white, because you'll see that'll make the image pop more, especially the white swan. So I just have a piece of poster board from the Dollar Tree store, and I'm just going to cut around it and cut it out.
Through and make me nervous. And then this way I can get the outer edge off too. That's hanging out there. So doesn't bother me.
There we go. So since these are the thickness it needs to be, I will put these back. Little disintegrating things. Back up anyway, so it's okay. So I have my handy dandy framing tool. I cannot believe, y'all, this is the one of the best investments I've ever made. If I get it in there. Sometimes you have to go down. And now I'm going to use some double-sided tape there. And a tape roller, go around the edge, because we're going to back this with some contractor's paper. I don't want you all thinking that I learned this on my own. I had a Budweiser mirror reframed for my husband and at Hobby Lobby, and they were using all these tools, and I'm like, hold on, all day long I am redoing frames and windows, and I need these tools in my life. Seriously. Piece of contractor's paper from the hardware store. And then I just use sandpaper to cut it off. They had a handy dandy tool, and I have yet to find the right tool. But this works. I'm going to spritz it a little bit so it looks like it's been on there for a while and not just a new piece of paper. Using some eyelet hooks to hang our new hanger back here. 17 gauge wire. Put off nice and tight, and then we just roll the rest of it. And I always like to give it a good pull, make sure that I'm not in any bad wood, but that's nice and tight. The thing I don't pass up is metal signage, just plain word signage, Hobby Lobby, whatever, wherever it's from, especially when the letters are raised, giving this aged look. They're great sellers for me, so I'm going to share the technique with you. Okay, now we got a really long sign, but I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down. Dawn dish soap, hot water seems to work perfectly fine to degrease. Degrime. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scuff sand this. I know that it's metal, and so when you go to paint or do any kind of patina on it, it's just sitting on there. So if you scrape into it, scuff into it, you have a little bit better chance of your paint sticking. And you can see like the original one is already chipping off. So I want to make sure that I get, if there's any more that wants to chip, that means my paint would chip. Okay, I got it sanded. I'm just going to wipe it off one more time. And before I start working on the front, I'm actually going to work on the back. I don't want to do a patina on this side and then this be the new aged galvanized. So what I usually do is I will just spray the back with black, just a black enamel paint, seal that in, and then we'll work on the front. Okay, our back is done. Now we're going to flip it over, and before doing any of the Dixie Belle patina, yeah, you guessed it, I am going to spray some shellac because I want to help the paint stick to this metal. So I'm going to be using Dixie Belle's iron paint. I've got the shellac on there, I've prepped it, I've cleaned it, I've sanded it. So now we're just going to start dabbing. I like to dab because I think it looks like realistic, like the metal really has rusted. To me, rust is kind of bumpy, not paint strokes. Okay, I ended up doing 2 coats because I felt like I could see too much of the metal. It's just a guesstimate on how the paint is going on. So now we're into the sprays, and I'm going to start off with, which I usually always start off with, is the green patina spray, which makes the reddish brown rust color. And I'm just going to mist the entire piece. Oop, I did forget one thing. I want to raise this up. So I'm just going to use some terracotta pots that I have behind me, just so that it's not pooling underneath it, and then I can spray the sides. So if I spray my terracotta pots, that is just going to give them character. Those were new ones anyway. So we got that all sprayed, and then I always like to mix my patinas. That's just how I am. So I'm just going to do not as much as I do on the others. of the green. And then I do a couple little dabs of yellow. I do like the yellow, but that's a hard one. You have to kind of spritz it, decide where you want it to be. And then sometimes I'll go back over with the rust just to kind of spread it out. And I know it always looks so yellow, but it makes some great detail. Now this is just going to be a drippy mess. So I just need to move it and let it do its magic. The one thing you'll learn about patina, if you use it, is that every metal reacts differently. Look at how amazing that is. If I can find a wooden, not MDF board bread box that just needs some updating, I'm gonna get it. Yeah, so yes, I definitely look for wooden because a lot of times bread boxes are on your counter. You could have water, and if you have MDF board and water gets on it and underneath it, it can swell. Wood, you have a little bit of time to rescue it before the wood starts to swell. So I was happy to find this cute little one. I love that you can put stuff on the top of it, some decor or salt and pepper, whatever you want, whatever you want to use it. The door is nothing I can take off. As you see, it's attached by like a dowel rod in there. So no screws, so it gets to stay while I'm painting it. Not the funnest, but you work with what you have. I can take the knob off, but first I'm going to take these little felt feeties off. I have something I can put on at the end to prevent it from getting wet, but I'm going to go ahead and take these off. The Made in China. Even though this piece is MDF. But at least if we put feeties on it, it will keep, like this piece and this piece look to be MDF. But for most part, it's all solid wood. Or veneer board. Or, yeah, probably not as much wood as I thought it was. But we got it now. We're going to make it over. He'll have that, but for the most part, it's wood, y'all, so take that knob off, and then we'll start to scuff sand it. Okay, I know that seems like a lot of work, but the more prep you do, the better chance your paint's sticking. And it really, I mean, the sander does it all. So I just kind of hold it and let it do its work. Luckily, it fit inside. I really need to seal this in with some shellac. We've got, where I couldn't get it all. I got some, got raw wood. We've got some of the stain, you don't get every single area you could, but you might spend hours. But we're repainting this. So the shellac will act as a primer to attract the paint and fill in the porosity, the dryness. It'll absorb in instead of the paint absorbing in. For the bread box, we're going to be doing that new Jamie Ray vintage color of Cheshire. Now, yeah, you can special order one of these big old bags. I had been going through it a lot, so Sarah, Felix Closet, hooked me up, with a big bag. So there is actually, you know, for a little bread box, you think, oh, there's not much surface area. Well, once you do, because I'm doing the whole thing, every piece of it's going to get paint on it. So more than you think. So if you have not used Sweet Pickins milk paint, it is a powder, as you see, that you mix equal parts water. Unless you want it thicker or thinner, then, you know, I just do equal parts. This is just tap water, room temperature, just in the water bottle container. Then you stir it, incorporating all that powder in with that water. Look at that beautiful color. And then you stir it for about 2 minutes, but I'm constantly scraping the sides, scraping up the bottom, trying to eliminate chunks of, but if you get them, you get them, and it's character. But but I give it a good try. If you have one of those immersion blenders that you just, I don't know, I went through like 5 of them, and every time they broke on me. So I'm like, I'm over it. I'm just gonna use the technique of a plastic utensil and stir it. Okay, there's no easy way to go at it. I'm just going to start right inside because, like I said, I'm doing all of it. And it's nice because the shellac will help grab that paint that I'm putting on there. Try not to get it pooling up into the corners there. Needed a long handle brush to get down there. I just happened to grab one of the Temu fan brushes. I didn't order them. Viewer D sent them to me. Some people like big old brushes. I like little brushes. So I'm just going to flip-flop it, whatever angle I can get at to get the inside painted. I always like to use something to rise it up so the paint's not pooling. So just some hockey pucks that I thrifted, wrapped in some packing tape and some Ziplocs. It works. Yep, the nice thing about the paint is you can dry it with a heat gun. And I'm not really drying it dry. I'm just trying to prevent the running that seems to be happening for some reason because I shellacked it too well. Maybe it's not absorbing in. Okay, we're on to our second coat. I've already done the inside because that's a hard angle for you all to see. And I'm just putting it on if I feel like it's grabby, but so far it's just going on. If it's grabby, then you just take a mister bottle and spray it, but just sometimes paint just acts differently depending on the day. So I went to Pinterest and I was just looking for the word bread. And I always like the swirly letters of the swirly writing of the B. So now what I'm going to do is, oh, oops, I did that wrong. I'm going to my edit. I'm going to copy it. And here I'm in my Excel program, Microsoft. I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to move it. I'm going to turn it because it won't print out the other way. It won't print out the other way. It'll be too big. Try to make it even. And then I'm going to go into my picture format. And then I'm going to go over here, and this is going to allow me to flip it so that it is in the reverse. So I don't know if this technique will work or not, but I'm going to try to transfer. So you saw, went and printed out bread, reversed it, flipped it. Now you know how, if you've done it before, You put Mod Podge on the paper, you let that completely dry, and then you rub off the paper, and your ink should transfer onto your board. The worst that could happen is I'll have to repaint it. That's the worst. So not any big deal if it doesn't work or not. So we will find out. So my thought process is if you don't try, how will you ever know? So I'm going to put a good amount using Mod Podge in the mat. And I know y'all, I say it differently than everybody else for some reason, but that's just how I am. So I'm just going to paint it on. I just have a regular printer, nothing fancy, no laser printer, no. So what we're trying to do is transfer the ink print to look like it's a faded label. I have not actually done this technique in a really long time. For some reason, I was inspired to do it today on this piece. When you're inspired, you just go for it. Okay, so let me see. Hopefully I remember where my center is. Because my B is basically this, the whole side. And almost a quarter. Now we press it down and we have to let it dry. And it may take overnight, it may dry late, I don't know. It's a beautiful warm day out, thinking it's trying to be spring here in Michigan, which is wonderful. I didn't seal my paint in with anything. That's the whole point. A lot of people do this with chalk paint, but you know, milk paint is just as porous without any sealer in here. So that's why I'm like, I think that'll work with milk paint. Oh, did we forget to talk about the amazing crackle going on? I think we did. I think we went right to the label and forgot about that. Oh my gosh. Is that not? It has to be the shellac, you all, because it didn't chip off. It did beautiful crazy, and this was all dried on its own. I didn't use a heat gun whatsoever because I did really thin coats because I had a lot, I didn't want it to pool up. But yeah, amazing fun crackle going on. Okay, here's the fun part, the reveal. See if it worked or not. So I just have water on a rag and I'm wetting it down. And then we start rubbing it off. I'm going to spray this right where it is with some matte clear coat polyacrylic. Okay, I'm going to put some aging wax on here, right over the lettering, into those crevices. I sealed everything in with polyacrylic. And then I'm going to take some of the clear wax, and then we're just going to start rubbing it in. I'm not going to be gentle, so if anything's going to chip off, it's going to chip off. But I feel like the aging wax will just tie that. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of fun. That label was a lot of fun to do. Not putting the felt pads back on, but I am going to do these little feeties to keep it off the counter if there's ever water. You have to do the screw part ends up hitting here, so you have to do something that comes from the inside. So at least I have one little turn one. mean to have a swan theme, but swans, for some reason, I've had a set of swans in my house for over, 30 years. I hate to admit that, but I'm only 25, so how does that work? But anyway, yeah, so I'm going to update these little swans that I just recently found at a thrift store. She doesn't match up. I don't know necessarily if they were supposed to be a pair, but the cuts in the back remind me of being a pair. So if I paint them as a pair, I think that's wonderful. And then this one has a turny head, which I know the set that I bought forever ago, Terry's Village, it was a catalog order. That drove me absolutely nuts. Every time I dusted, that head fell off. The cats played, the head fell off. So this head's getting glued on, y'all. That's just how it is. Always a personal choice if you want to glue on the head or not. And I know maybe for shipping it's easier, but I don't know. I just know as somebody who dusts that it's a pain. So I'm just using some Titebond Quick and Thick. And then I'm going to decide, oops, I didn't put any on the dowel rod. Which direction I'd like it to be looking. So I do think a little head tilt, since this one's tilted this way. And then I'm just going to kind of fill in that crack a little bit. Okay, I want to try to protect most of the glass eyes on these. So I'm just going to take some painter's tape and an X-Acto knife. It protects most of it. I can't say that it doesn't end up running under, that you have to clean off a little bit. But in general, it does help. It really wouldn't be an easy object to try to scuff sand. And it's got a lot of staining in the paint, actually. I don't know why. Because I've already washed it off with Dawn dish soap, hot water. The same with this one. It's got kind of marked up. And why I think that, I don't know if they were made together, because one has a painted bottom, one doesn't. So anyway, so I'm going to go ahead. Like this one, I need to paint over the swoop to the eye. Doesn't match up right. It needs to be more like that. So I'm going to seal them in with some shellac before painting. Okay, so same color as what the frame was is a flour sack.
Sometimes you stick with the classic because that's what sells, right?
Get that underneath why I'm here. Good. Coat number 2. Ooh, I guess I missed a spot the first one, but it's not like it's the finished paint job. So our swans have some beautiful little small crackles on them. Before finishing up and repainting their beaks, I want to seal that milk paint in with some clear coat. And sometimes I know I do the stupid things that nobody else cares about, but to make this a matching set, I already painted the other underbelly under under black, so I'm going to paint over this gray one. I was going to use the same black anyway to do their bills, the little beaks. Okay, I got 2 little cuties now. They both have black bottoms, so now they're most similar. Tried my best to do the lines up to the eyes. And now I'm going to go ahead and put some aging wax on them to start, because you can see them, but you can't see them. And you put that aging wax on there, and then you can really see them. So there again, they're already sealed in with some polyacrylic, so it's not going to turn them brown. And then I'm going to rub it off using some clear. Of course, you can leave as much and as little on as you want. You just keep rubbing. So thank you so much for watching today's video. It's always fun to do stuff that sells, of course, but find the supplies needed, the thrifted items needed to be able to reproduce something that has sold for you in the past, and bringing back an old technique of the paper, printing it on to make the breadboard. I think that was kind of fun and kind of cool. Give me your comments if you've tried that before. Do you have any little tips for me? I like it. I'm pretty happy with it. We'll see how it sells. So thanks for watching. We will see you next time, and you can see what I'm creating. Bye.